Hello, all you web viewers. My name is Dennis Nilsson, and I'm on my way to do some grocery shopping. I'm a stay-at-home dad of Washington, D.C. But I'm also a political theorist. I have a PhD in politics from Catholic University. And I follow things as they come up in the world. One of my areas of focus is the Middle East, specifically Iran. Now, for anyone who's watching this, you all know that President Trump gave the order to kill Major General Qasem Soleimani, who was the commander of the Quds Force, which was the special operations branch of the Sepah Pastorane Enqilab Islamiyah. Sorry, I didn't quite get that right, but it's the what's called the Islamic Guard, the Corps of Guardians of the Islamic Revolution. And in so doing, he committed an act of war. The reason being, General Soleimani was a uniformed officer of a recognized defensive force of another country. Even though we don't share diplomatic relations with that country, it still is a recognized sovereign entity, and we exchange recognition through the UN, at least through the UN. Excuse me. Now, as a Catholic, this angers me, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm a President Trump supporter. The reason, chiefly, why I support him is because he's pro-life. That is, he is against abortion, even though he is in favor of the death penalty, as am I, and there's reason for that. But he's against abortion. He doesn't want to see children murdered in the womb, and that's the only issue that can be counted in this country. And no other issue is nearly as important. If you get that wrong, you're going to get a lot of other things wrong. Or even if you get them right, it's a crapshoot, because you've gotten the small thing right, whereas you've gotten the foundational issue of this country's politics wrong. However, when it comes to foreign policy, he is totally in the pocket of the Jews, and he's shown this time and time again. He consistently favors Israel over everybody else. And the reason for that is quite simple, because he gets a lot of money from very wealthy Jews in this country. And with the impeachment going on, he could arguably have been looking for a way to distract the populace from the proceedings, even though the impeachment it's become clear that the impeachment is a nothing burger. It's such an atrocious nothing burger that the Democrats have. I mean, good Lord. I mean, the Republicans made a mistake with Clinton in 1998, and they figured, oh, well, they want their chance to do the same thing 20 years later, and they thought they got their chance. But yeah. So, but the thing is, now they have a reason to impeach him, because he committed an act of war against another country without informing Congress about it, without declaring war, even having the courtesy to declare war. And now we're in this position where we are. So, not only does he support Israel, and he supports the settlements in the West Bank, and he's recognized the occupied portion of the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, and on and on and on and on. And he recognizes the Israeli occupation of East Jerusalem. And he's also recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Now, as a Catholic, I just find this distasteful. Because, one, the Catholic Church is the true Israel, and no other country, no other people or country has the right to use that word. But that's a minor point compared to what's going on. So he gave the order to assassinate General Soleimani, and he also assassinated what I understand to be the deputy head of one of the Shiite militias in Iraq. And it wasn't even done by a person; it was done by a drone. I mean, it's so unchivalrous and so pathetic. It's like even worse than a mob hit. The mob at least will send some guy to kill you, or they'll send some guy to plant a bomb in your car or whatever. But they're not going to do it by drone strike, for goodness sake. I mean, but so it's descended to that level. Now, it is a criminal act, and that's the problem. But the thing is, to whom is he responsible? Well, according to the U.S. Constitution, he's responsible to Congress. So now they have something they can actually prosecute him for. It was a high crime, and he has to be charged with it. Now, the Democrats also can't be caught out to be anti-Israeli, so they're not going to, I guarantee you, they're not going to put this into the articles of impeachment. And Nancy Pelosi is in an even tighter spot because of this. Very few people in this country like what the Israelis do. They don't like Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't like the Shas party, even if they knew who they are. These ultra-Orthodox Jews. I mean, nobody can stand these people. So, but yet we're bound to these people because the Jews have such power in this country through the media, through the press, the written press, the television media, through Hollywood, which is largely Jewish controlled, and then through these very wealthy Jews who are just apparent throughout society, and they they have the money, and money talks and BS walks, unfortunately. This isn't to say that the Iranians or the Iranian government is always in the right. But what gets me is that the Iranians are in Iraq because the Iraqis tell them they can be there. The Iranians are in Syria because they can be there. The Iranians are in Lebanon supporting Hezbollah because the Lebanese government is okay with it. But the only place in the Middle East that where we are and where people have an okay with it now is Israel. I mean, the Iraqis just told us to get out, and it's just constant problems. Constant problems. So President Trump does this for whatever reason, but now he's in even thicker hot water because I was listening to a podcast that E. Michael Jones was doing, an interview with Press TV, and he's saying, look, Iranians, don't retaliate. Please, whatever you do, don't retaliate. The American press wants you to do this. Because if you do, it's going to be a cow's belly for us. It's going to go back and forth. Excuse me, I just got to plug in my phone here. It's going to go back and forth, and we're going to find ourselves in a heap of hot water. Excuse me, pardon me. I mean, the number of wars that have begun through minor occurrences have been large. I mean, the murder of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo, and admittedly the Archduke was warned not to go there. He went there anyway, and it was actually an attempt on his life before lunch. But after lunch, as he was driving around with his wife, he was shot by, I think, by members of the Black Hand. It was a Serbian organization. But that precipitated World War I. Now, they could have taken a step back. The Austrians went after Serbia. The Russians mobilized to support Serbia. Then the Germans mobilized to support Austria. And it went downhill from there. Before you know it, you had the invasion of France and the tremendous casualties. Now but at least World War I began with the declaration of war. I mean, even World War II. And I have to say that the Axis powers actually followed international law appropriately in that regard. Let me just give you a difference. This is something I've been reading recently. The German declaration of war against the United States on December 11, 1941. Adolf Hitler read this gave a speech to the Reichstag, and he addressed the deputies. It's a wonderfully clear speech. You might not agree with everything he says, but he lays out the points. He says the American president, Franklin Roosevelt, has been acting in a deceitful manner for years, trying to provoke Europe into war. And he blames the Jews for doing this too. But Hitler held back. You might say he didn't want to bring down the thunder of the U.S. Military on him before the time, but you could also say he was abiding international law. He didn't want to attack a country with which he was not at war. But what do we do? In the same situation, President Trump attacked a member of a uniformed man. I don't know if he was actually wearing a uniform, but he has rank in the Pastodon. And this is like the Iranians assassinating a high-ranking general officer in our armed forces. It's just so arrogant. It's just, I hate to say this about the president, because he is pro-life. He's had enough of this abortion garbage, and he's shutting these people down. I mean, these people deserve to be locked up for murder. But he can go and commit murder when the U.S. when the Jews demand it. They just were getting a little too afraid of the Pastodon, of the Iranians, and the influence that they have in the Middle East. And they only have that influence in the Middle East because we took out Saddam Hussein and caused a power vacuum in Iraq. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows this. Everybody who has read about this knows this right now. So So what now? So for any Iranians out there who are watching this video, please do not respond. I make a petition to the Supreme Leader. Don't respond. If I was sitting in front of you, I'd say, Your Excellency, do not respond to this immediately. Allow your temper to calm. Every injustice committed in this world will have its payment, either in this world or in the hereafter. And, we know that I know that you understand it. As a Catholic, I believe that too. And that's it. Now, what else can we say? What else can we say here? On the other hand, let's say, ever since the end of World War II, the United States, and this is something I'm taking from a scholar named D. Michael Jones, a guy whom I follow and with whom I agree on nearly everything he says. He says that the United States, after the end of the Cold War, embarked on a unipolar mindset in international affairs. And he says this mirrors what the Jews call chutzpah, that is, just going way too far, taking advantage of the weakness of others and getting as far ahead as you possibly can. Becoming a world hegemon, because you can't allow another country to even come close to you, because those people will threaten you at some future point. This is what's known as the realist perspective. But this is the latest example of the U.S. going that much further, just going one step further, and it's upping the ante. That's the problem. After the fall of the Soviet Union, we promised the Soviets, we promised Gorbachev, Mikhail Gorbachev, who was it was a gentleman's promise between him and James Baker and President George Bush Sr., not to extend NATO. But what did we do? We extended NATO. Bill Clinton said, we don't have the right to refuse these newly free countries membership in NATO. And I would have said, well, of course we do. We just let people in because they have free elections, or supposedly free elections now? This just tilted the balance of power against the Russians, and they felt it keenly. And then we got involved in Bosnia. We supported the Mujahideen in Bosnia and ticked off the Russians, even though initially Boris Yeltsin supported us and recognized Kosovo and Slovenia and Bosnia. He was doing it to get on the right side of the U.S. because he felt we were going to treat him with respect now. But that wasn't the case. Then we get involved in the Yugoslav war. That was pushing the envelope there. Then we invaded Iraq to take out the Iraqi army because the Israelis were afraid of them. That was pushing the envelope further. And then we recognized Kosovo. That was pushing the envelope still further. Then we tried to get the Ukrainians into our orbit, and that was pushing it still further. And finally, the Russians and Putin said, no, you're not going to go any further. And they stopped our expansion there. Okay? So this continues to happen here. Then we had this deal with the Iranians, the JCPOA, in 2015, which President Barack Obama accomplished. And I detest the man because he's pretentious, first of all, and he was in favor of child murder, abortion, and that just discounts him immediately. But at least he got this thing signed. What does President Bush do? Well, when he was running, he said it was the worst deal ever. Okay. I think the worst deal ever was the British guarantee to Polish sovereignty in case of a German attack. That was completely worthless. So he says, that's going to go. The deal's going to go. Well, he gets out of it. A lot of people voted for Trump because of his domestic rhetoric. I'm going to get back jobs. I'm going to end federal funding for abortion. I'm going to appoint pro-life justices, etc. And we thought he was going to. He told us that he was going to take us out of the Middle East and just scale back the stuff. But no. All of a sudden, he turns around and he takes us out of the JCPOA, and then we hear this warmongering again. Why? Because a lot of rich Jews gave him money. And they pull the strings here in D.C., and this is what's happening. So, this is where we are, folks. But I appeal to the Iranians. Don't respond tit for tat. Don't respond to the law, the lex talionis, the law of the claw. Don't do it. I know you're Muslim, but show Christian calmness. All right, just be at peace and not so you're planning your next move, because do not precipitate a war, because that's what these people want. They want you to respond in kind, so that'll give them a reason to respond in kind even further. And President Trump even he picked out 52 targets of cultural significance. I mean, talk about a bold statement. I mean, that's that's terrorism right there. That's threatening people undeservedly. And yet they accuse Qasem Soleimani of being a terrorist. Joe Lieberman, the former vice presidential candidate, was actually on Fox News, and he was trying to appear to be a bridge between the Democrats and the Republicans, saying, "Oh, essentially support President Trump because what? Well, because of course, Soleimani, of course, he's a terrorist and a murderer. Well, was he? Can you give us any proof of that? What exactly did he do to earn that epithet?" But that's exactly what President Trump did. He carried out an extrajudicial killing. This is what the mob does. They don't go according to the law. They do whatever the hell they want. It's because somebody pissed them off. Hey, you pissed off the boss. We're gonna shoot this guy. You gotta get the okay from the boss, though. Hey, but once you do,